Mr. Song Il-Kim, he's the director of Livestock Product Safety Policy Division of Korea Ministry of Food and Drug Safety. Please.
예, 안녕하십니까. 금방 소개.
So, good afternoon. As introduced, I am Kim Sung-il. I am director of MFDS. So, our division was in charge of organizing this conference, and while preparing for this conference, I would like to thank all the speakers who have generously accepted our offer to serve as speakers. Because of the time constraint, I would like to briefly talk about what kind of AMR action strategies that Korea has taken. So this is the agenda of my presentation. I'll first give you the background and history of action plans in Korea and how we have cooperated with the international organizations. President Yoon also raised the concern about the future infectious disease, and he also emphasized the need for international collaboration and also Korea's leadership in promoting international cooperation. With regards to the threat of AMR, I'm sure you're just an expert, and therefore I don't really have to elaborate on that. But after the development of the antibiotics, the resistance microorganisms emerged. And if you look at this graph or timeline, you see that we actually are under very serious threat. And regarding the threat of AMR and also the risk, it is estimated that a lot of people will die by 2050, so up to 10 million deaths. But this is what's discussed only among experts, and the general public are pretty distant from, and they are now aware of the threat of AMR. And therefore, while we promote the international cooperation from our own bodies, but we also have to raise the public awareness, especially the awareness of the veterinarians and also the animal producers and general consumers. And for the One Health approach, I'm sure everyone here agrees on the importance of One Health approach. And this is critical to reduce the consumption of antibiotics and antimicrobials. From 2002 in Korea, we found that 93% of the some foods showed the AMR to E. coli. So it was released by the press in Korea. And this this has drawn our attention, and we have worked on the national action plan since then. So here you see, these are the tasks that we undertook, and we have the several action plans, and the MFDS is in charge of the non-human sector. So international organizations to have different missions and different roles to play. Likewise, as for the AMR project, we have several ministries being involved. So the MAFRA and also the MFDS and the Ministry of the Marine and Fisheries, as well as the Ministry of Environment. And therefore, international cooperation is important, but at the domestic level, the cooperation between different ministries is also critical. And for Korea, MFDS, we are in charge of overall oversight of the foodborne or food-related AMR and monitoring and surveillance. MAFRA is in charge of animal affairs, as well as the plants and crops. So they do the monitoring and surveillance for animal, plants, and crops. And for the Ministry of Environment, they monitor the water and streams. And for the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, they are in charge of aquaculture, fish, and related environment. From 2003 to 2007, different ministries have come together and joined their hands to come up with a national AMR management program. And so mostly the programs were about the E. coli, and based on the characteristics of the food, we defined a list of the pathogens at risk, and we also defined a list of the antimicrobials. And between 2008 and 2012, we focused on, rather we divided the AMRs into clinical field and non-clinical field, or human and non-human field. And for the non-human field or non-clinical field, MFDS is in charge. And also the MAFRA and MOF and Ministry of Environment, they have different roles under the MFDS. And between 2013 and 2016, again, you see that the different ministries are involved in various programs. And until 2025, we want to first identify how much antibiotic is used in Korea, and also what kind of collaborations we should pursue, and what research activities we have to conduct. So basically the MFDS, we take care of the non-human sectors. So here you see that we monitor the water environment, animal, fish, and we do the overall surveillance programs for the retail food. And I think what's important is to build the linkage with the One Health approach. So before we complete our project, before 2025, we will develop how to link the clinical and non-clinical field, or human and non-human field. And this is about the antibiotic consumption trend in Korea. And in 2011, we banned the AGP for the feed mix. And from 2013, we introduced the legislation that the prescription must be issued by veterinarian for the use of the antibiotics. So only with the veterinarian's prescriptions, the antibiotics can be administered. And with these actions, you see that the overall consumption of antibiotic has been on the decline. And in particular, the classical antibiotics are on decline. But if you look at the novel agent, you see that there are some increase in consumption. This is one example that E. coli was, this is the resistance of the E. coli in beef. And so for some antibiotics, you see that the resistance is declining significantly thanks to all the actions that we undertook. But if you look at the newly developed the antimicrobials, you see that there is a trend of increasing, unlike the tetracycline. So the use of the newly developed antimicrobials are increasing, as well as the resistance is also growing in relation with these novel drugs. And now let's take a look at how MFDS cooperates with the international organization. So through the Codex Intergovernmental Task Force activities from 2007 and 2010, we are involved in the TFAMR project, and we have done various activities until 2021 and even afterwards. And this is the ACT project that Korea government pursues. So basically what we try to is to incorporate the guidances or the recommendation by the international organization into our legislative environment in order to reduce and contain AMR. And regarding the ACT project, so through the FAO, we support the project. And tomorrow we will have a separate session to talk about the details of this project. With regards to the AMR, from our division, we have to produce some outcomes because we have dedicated a lot of money and budget for multiple years. And in order to continue to carry out this project, we actually have to produce some deliverables or some outcomes to justify our investment. So yes, we have to focus on raising public awareness, but at the same time, we have to have some figures and numbers, and as well as the concrete data that can be backed up by the scientific evidence, but it's pretty elusive. And therefore, we hope that we can continue to strengthen our cooperation with the quadripartite bodies so that we can produce a more tangible outcomes from the project. But as you know, with regards to AMR, this is a global issue. This is a significant threat for the future of human beings, and therefore we really have to find out wide solutions to tackle this issue. And with that, thank you very much. Thank you, Director Kim. Any questions from the floor? I don't think you have questions, so I would like to make some comments to Director Kim. So, with a sincere wish to see the successful project, I would like to make this comment. First, as for basic research, I believe we really have to strengthen basic research. Yes, so it's important to conduct surveillance, and you may be stingy on the basic research because it could be seen as a cost factor, but without basic research, we cannot really find out effective way to tackle this issue. So for example, like if a antimicrobial is administered to animals, then what kind of changes do you know are occurring in the guts of the animals? So for these, I think, have you ever conducted the research on that? So it's easy to say we shouldn't use antimicrobials, but we have to understand the mechanism, and we have to have the scientific evidence that how it is observed and how it is metabolized in the animal body. So in that sense, I think we have to have a more scientific study. And also for the AMR indicator, let's say it's E. coli. Then, but is E. coli enough for the research? Haven't you thought about that? Should there be other species to be included? I understand that the strain of the E. coli in human being and the E. coli strain type in dogs, as well as the E. coli strain types in pigs, they're all different, because the E. coli is very sensitive to temperature changes, and therefore different E. coli species live in different animals. So although the genotype could be same, but the strains of the host are all different, then can we just assume that there is no interconnection or no relationship? Maybe not. So we have to think about this potential interconnection. And Klebsiella pneumonia, I believe this is a good case because the strains are all similar whether they live in human beings or dogs. So we have to have more basic understanding. Otherwise, we invest a lot of money, but there will be nothing left and nothing tangible. And therefore, basic research is something that we have to strengthen. And also in the past, for the AMR study, the microbiology study was enough, but I think today things have changed. So we have to really go down to the level of the molecular study. And with the molecular study, we can have a deeper understanding. So maybe we have to do the whole genome sequencing and also the microbiology study. So we have a lot to study. But if you look at policies, So yes, there are many governments being involved, but the problem is that actual researchers, we are short of them. We don't really have enough of them. So in the sense, I believe we have to secure high budget for research, and we have to pay and we have to hire more researchers. Only then they can grow their capacities and they can continue to carry out researches. So policy-wise, you may have done a great job, but if there is no researcher, then it's nothing. So in the sense, I hope that the director could support us in that way. I would like to make some comment as well. So regarding the basic research that you talked about, I completely agree with the importance of the basic research, and we have to understand the gut changes, what kind of changes will happen in the gut, and also regarding the metabolization of the antimicrobials and so on. But we actually have some researches that have already been carried out. And as for the E. coli, yes, we had some heated debate on this issue, but as mentioned by the previous speakers, especially when it comes to Europe, so I understand that we have done the classifications. So in Korea, again, we should identify the E. coli that may have the same strains for food, animals, and humans. And in the process, we actually had to accept what's selected by the international organization. So for the choice of the E. coli strain. But maybe for other unique species, we have to do the separate studies. And after the project is complete, we also have to think about how we can interlink these results of different studies. Anyway, so we selected the E. coli in order to build the interlinkages, but we are aware of that issue that you pointed out. And regarding the budget for the research funding, is we try to secure as much budget as possible to support researchers. And so the data and also the outcomes, the deliverables, I believe that we have to have more tangible data and outcomes, and that will help us secure more budget for research projects. So thank you very much.
이제 요 세션이 이제 다 시간이 된 것 같고요. 오늘 좋은 강의 또 좋은 디스커션 해주신 여러분께 감사드립니다. 수고 많으셨습니다. 끝이겠습니다.